looking at a concept called liberal democracy. So I want us to look at the features or characteristics of liberal democracy. What things do we look at? And we say that country is a liberal country. It is having a liberal system of governance. What things do we look at? What are the things that makes up a liberal democratic government? So the following are the characteristics or features of a liberal democratic government. 1, free and fair elections. So when you look at the country having free and fair elections, that means that's one of the features of a democratic government or democratic country. We're talking about features, the things you look at, the characteristics that gives out what you are. Are we together? So, what makes a country to be a liberal democratic government? There are the following features. We have what we call free and fair elections. The country must exercise free and fair elections. This kind of having election malpractices during elections, this area they didn't vote, this past, you see people cheating, you see the army taking votes, that kind of thing. There must be free and fair elections. So we say regular, free and fair elections are the main cores, or are some of the cores, or are some of the things we look at and we say this is a liberal democratic system of governance. So they should ensure that the government reflects, they must ensure that the citizens are given freedom. Actually, the government should just come in to protect. For example, during the voting period, we expect the army to come and protect its people during voting in order, actually, for the people to be safe. In case of any problem, in case of any challenge, in case of anything, the army is there to protect, not to engage itself in voting. But in some countries, you find out when it is the army voting, when it is the army in charge of, actually, it is the army driving the voting process. And because of this, we've seen different rebellions, riots coming out. Look at South Africa, Sudan. So these countries are experiencing such riots because look at Congo. So once the army engages itself in elections, then it will end up calling for chaos, riots. So one of the characteristics or principles, one of the features of the liberal democratic government, it is having free and fair elections. 2, protection of citizen or civil liberty and human rights. The rights of the people should be protected instead of being violated. We normally see people during elections, they beat up people, they imprison people, drones just come from nowhere, they grab people, they imprison them, they punish them, and actually people disappear, you don't see them. For instance, when we had elections in 2021, people were taken in Uganda. They are nowhere to be seen. Not only here in our country, the neighborhoods of Uganda, Congo, Sudan, Burundi, Tanzania, and others. So features, characteristics of a liberal government, there must be protection of civil liberties and human rights instead of violating them. So people should be granted the freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of religion, assemblies. Rights of the people should be respected. People should be given fair trials. But here they prolong the process. You go in the court, they ask you huge amount of money. At times, those who cannot pay, they end up rotting in the prisons. People die in prisons. We have good examples in our motherland. Look at Muhammad Segirinya's issue. By the time he came out of the prison, the situation had already worsened. By the time he came out of the prison, he was not the Segirinya that went there, and at the end of the day, he died. But still, if you want to say that that is a liberal democratic government, human rights should be protected. You will normally see journalists here, they beat them. Someone is holding the camera, they cane them. You see different army departments. We have the JAD, the Anti-Terrorist Joint Forces, which caned people in Kawempe last time. You go in Burkina Faso, Burundi, Sudan, Senegal, countries have such things. Human rights are instead violated. These are the things that Martin Luther King Jr. fought in America to ensure that there is what we call fair election. People's rights are protected. That's why they formed what we call the civil rights movement. Separation of power and checks and balances. This is the third characteristic of future of a liberal democratic government. The government is divided into separate branches: the executive, legislative, judiciary, each with its own power and responsibility. This separation prevents any of the three branches to have more powers over the other, and this helps to encourage cooperation and accountability. Why does the army come in the judicial system? Why does the president enter the judicial system? So each branch should stand on its own, and each branch is responsible for whatever goes wrong in that particular department. If the cook delays to supply food, should we blame the head teacher? Should we blame the teachers? Then if students delays in class because of the teacher teaching, should we blame the cook? If the food is not enough, should we blame the parents? Should we blame the students? So each person has a key role to play. So there must be separation of power, and let the powers be exercised. There must be independent judiciary, another principle, another feature. The judiciary is a liberal democracy. Judiciary in a liberal democracy is independent of political influence, ensuring that laws are being fully exercised and applied accordingly. But once one of the branches enters the other, then it will suffocate another. That's why here you find out some people do wrong things, they take them in the courts. Because of the above, they release them. That means you are suffocating the judiciary. So each branch should stand on its own. 5. Popularism and political participation. Liberal democracies encourage what we call multi-party system, whereby they encourage the rise of different parties. There must be freedom of operation. Each party must be given freedom to operate. Why do we stop other parties from exercising their freedom? All parties should exercise their freedom without being interfered by any organ. But here you find the security organ, you find the army, you find the police, you find different organs, government organs interfering. Why should the army interfere the judicial system? A good example, Segirinya and his friend Muhammad, they were released by the court bail, but as they were going, the drone came for them. No one knew where the drone came from. That means If the judiciary had accepted them to go, then why should another branch come in to stop? Because each branch should play its part. So that is another feature of a liberal democratic government. There is what we call rule of law. Is another feature of a democratic government. The rule of law is a fundamental principle, meaning that all individuals, including the government officials, no one is above the law. Even if you are a soldier, even if you are who, you are not above the law. The law is there to protect people, not to protect specific people, but the law is there to protect all the people in a given country. Therefore, there is no need of looking at specific people. You exempt some, you punish others, you exempt some. No, the law is to serve all the people. Transparency and accountability. The governments in liberal democracies are expected to be transparent in their operations and accountable to the let me say, electorates. So why do you find out that they don't give people freedom? You find some governments, they deny press freedom. They actually, people's hands are tied behind, though in front they show that there is democracy. Decentralization and federalism. Many liberal democracies have decentralized or federalism or federal system of governance, where power is shared between the central government and regional government. That was the case in Uganda here. That's why you normally hear Uganda claiming for federal. Power was shared. But once a dictator takes over, all these things die out. Look at Obote. When Obote became the president of Uganda, he abolished what we call kingdoms. Look at the Kabaka crisis of 1966. Obote had to attack the palace, to imprison, to get the king dead or alive because of power. And yet he was his prime minister. So there must be power sharing. The government, the central government, should work with the, let me say, for example here, the government should share power. Then we have protection and the minority rights. Protection and minority rights. Liberal democracies protect the rights of majority groups, ensuring that all citizens, regardless of the race, religion, ethnicity, characteristics, color, all people should be treated fairly. There must be no discrimination. All subjects must be protected. Be it a foreigner, be it a citizen, all people should be protected. That's what we call liberal government. Civic education and engagement. Promoting civic education and engagement in vital and liberal democracies to ensure that citizens are informed, active, and responsible participants in the democratic process. So that's the role of a democratic liberal government. I beg to submit from here. Have a good day.